Okay, well, I don't know if my audio levels are okay. They seem like they might be a little hot. If they are, you'll let me know, and I'll go over and make some adjustments. Um, Pat is trying to say something in the chat. Welcome, everybody. It is Wednesday, March 1st. We're into month number 3 of 2023. And is that amazing? It is to me. My name is Jem Schofield. You have arrived either prior to, or right now, or in the future at the C47's YouTube channel. And we talk about things like cameras and lighting and grip and audio and all of that fun stuff. Welcome, everybody. I see some comments already showing up here in the Ecamm Live. What do we have? Pat's here, DJ Succotash, Ono Coffee. We've got Thaddeus, some of the regular cast of characters. I have no idea how many people are here, but it's probably in the single digits. But important people nonetheless. And let's see. Oops, I did the blah blah. Pat's trying to get something and saying something. Um, congrats on getting the FX30 Ono coffee. Other than the lens issues, how you like it so far? What lens issues? Cool. What I meant to say from Pat is that I didn't pop in right when I got here, so not sure if you were first or not. Good day, everyone. Thaddeus says, hello, hello, hello. Wilder's here. You've been waiting for a few hours. I don't know why you do such a thing. Any word on Caleb? He didn't show up for his scheduled stream. Oh. Um, I don't know. I had correspondence with Caleb earlier today, and he seemed okay. I'm going to have to check in with him now after the stream. I hope everything is fine. Anybody? That should have been about an hour ago. Was it scheduled for sure? Because I know he posted an episode, but I'm not sure about a stream. Let me know. Okay. Thank you, Wouter. Pat, you have to leave early. That's what it's like being retired. And David's here. All right, everybody. Who knows what's happening? I didn't even get the audio set up until about a half a second before I clicked on live. I have to find my channel 1 transmitter from my Wireless Go 2. I think that might be the issue. Brandon, Brandon, Brandon! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Good to see you here. Do you have questions? Somebody said they had a burning question for me. So send it over. Ono says FX30 with Mikey EF2E VND adapter to Canon 20mm f1.8 USM, and it mostly will not focus. 9 out of 10 times it's soft. Oh, that's a lot of stuff you're running things through. And well, it's not really that much stuff. I don't know. I mean, that is definitely a Caleb question, not only because he has an FX30, but because he would be likely to do something like that. Yeah. You're all waiting there at Caleb's. Interesting. Should I check up on him? I could do it live. I don't know. Let's see. I'll fire up the device and see if everything's okay. Wilder, you said he pushed it already. Can you explain that before I reach out to him? Bluetooth connecting. Play some music. Somebody clarify before I put alarms out, unless you meant that Ono Coffee pushed the question already. Anything? Do I know why Amarin 60Ds are selling out? At least here they seem to be gone at local supplier. Well, I don't know. Maybe they're blowing them out because they had the new COBs announced by Aperture / Amarin yesterday. Let me just do a quick thing here and make sure that Caleb is fine. Put a question up or something. All right, let's see what happens. And let me turn off those speakers. Give me 1 second. Almost there. Oh, now you can hear me while I'm walking around. Or you should at least be able to. Are my levels okay? Let me know on that. Stream is still listed as going live today. Okay, good. There we go. DJ Succotash says, tried the new Amaran 200X. Sounds like the redesigned COB gives some very good color rendering. I think they have plus minus green now too, in there, which is nice to see Aperture doing. And thank you, DJ, for that. And what did... Not sure why, but last week he also scheduled it and a few minutes before pushed it. Yeah, it might be just workload. We'll see. Good. All right. So let's start off the week. What happened? We've got these we're talking about lighting, and we'll get to some of that. I'll show you at least version alpha beta 2.0. It's not that much better. I feel a little bit better about having the set over here now than where it was last week. That way, when I walk over to it, it's a little bit easier for you to see everything. I do have a couple of other camera angles. I have this, obviously the Hero camera. I have this wider one, which is, it's not drastically different, but if I walk over here, I think you can see me, but I can also switch now over here. So if I do that, again, these views are not wildly different, though you don't have the table on this one right here. And then this second camera over here is just sort of a closer up, so we can do that. I think it's better than last week. We'll check that out in a little while. Somebody's doing a shout out to... Oh, yeah, of course. I get it, David. I'm tracking with you now. Good. So Aperture / Amaran. New products yesterday. Anybody want to weigh in on those? We've got essentially new COBs from the Amaran line. We've now got pixel-based tubes from Amaran, and we have pixel-based tubes now in more than just the MT Pro from Aperture. And they have the new Infini type system, which allows you to build these out in lots of different configurations. So I'd love to hear people's comments about the new Aperture stuff in terms of especially the tubes. And I don't know why you've got an oops there, David. I don't think you messed up on anything. He's there. That's our dude right there. You got that right. What do you think? What do you think of these new tubes? What do you think about the concept? I think they're taking stuff along with Sidus and these tubes to kind of I wouldn't say new territory. People have been rigging tubes for a long time, but their concept of making it so modular looks interesting. It went black? I don't know. Yeah. Pat, you should go over to you should go over to New Shooter or to CineD and check it out. But they have all the information. Obviously, Aperture's light too. DJ says, I've heard it described as a COB having a split of blue LEDs on it to help spread the blue light across the spectrum so it doesn't spike so hard. That's interesting. I mean, basic LED technology, just so everybody knows, and it's getting a little bit different now with these RGB, amber, cyan, lime ones, is a traditional basis for LED technology was you'd have a blue emitter, okay? So historically, you'd have a blue emitter, and then either sitting right on the blue emitter, so literally on it, or separated, which is what's called remote phosphor, you'd have phosphor. And the phosphor is a mixture that when applied directly to or separated from the blue LED, what happens is the blue LED light hits that phosphor, and based on the formula of the phosphor, it excites it, and then it produces a particular color temperature. And so the difference really is that phosphor in front of the blue LED. So if you had a daylight LED, it would be blue emitter, daylight essentially phosphor or mixture or formula, and then you would get a daylight color temperature. Um, then 3200 Kelvin or thereabouts. So if you had a mixture, you would have an array of blue emitters everywhere, and then you would have daylight phosphor, and then we'll just call it tungsten phosphor, even though that's kind of a misnomer. But you'd have essentially a 5600 Kelvin, and then you'd have a 3200 Kelvin, and then combining those two together will allow you to get different Kelvin temperatures. Now we're sort of moving towards other designs. So we have red, green, blue actually was sort of the way originally a lot of lights worked. You'd have just a red emitter, a blue emitter, and a green emitter, and combining them together, you try to create white light from it. A lot of the old DJ lights did that and did it pretty horribly. And that's why they had to start putting amber and daylight, basically emitters in there. So you have RGBWW. So you have kind of a warm and then a cooler, and then you have RGB, and then you combine them all together to get lots of spectrum. So 5 basically combinations. But generally, the white are blue emitters with phosphor, and then you have just traditional red, green, blue, and then you combine them together. And then hopefully I'm not going too fast on this. And then you have the RGB ACL, which is what's in the orbiter, the Pro light, the new Kelvin light. Those basically are red, green, blue, amber, cyan, lime, and those combine to create a broader spectrum and hopefully, in theory, a better reflected light off of objects in terms of what's captured by camera. Did that make sense? I hope so. So I need to look into the new Amarin COBs a little bit further to find out what they're doing in terms of that additional blue light, because historically it should have just been all blue light, but with different phosphor compounds in front of it. So I want to see what's happening with that. I'm not saying I know what's going on with that. All of the other aperture slash Amarin lights are essentially RGBWW. That's their approach. And then you take companies again like ProLight, Kelvin, Aries Orbiter specifically, RGB ACL, and I believe Hive's combination is slightly different than those 3 companies. But I think based on the way the industry is going, we're seeing 2 lanes currently. We're seeing an RGBWW lane, especially for um, COB lights, and we're seeing a um, RGB ACL. See you, Pat. Take care. Um, and I'm wondering why they would have a different blue phosphor. I could see that maybe they moved that to 2 different types of whites or something, but I need to look into that, DJ. I don't know. What I do like is that Aperture is creating cost-effective solutions, and it seems like their lower output COBs, chip-on boards, are in the Amarin line, and then they're sort of reserving now the higher output lights for Aperture for chip-on board. I may be wrong about that, and we'll have to see when we get closer to shows like NAB. But that's kind of the trend I'm seeing, and they're squarely in the RGBWW camp right now. And they're also really starting to push the pixel mapping side of things. So to me, the next question is how far are they going to go with their panels? Are they going to do anything similar to what KinoFlow is doing now, where you can essentially push essentially video footage to your lights? So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Um, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at that 200X and see what the deal is. But anybody else want to chime in on these new lights, or just, sort of where they see lighting going at all in the future? Water said I shouldn't have had that drink of water with lime. You can see which type of LED type LED it is by looking at it. If it's opaque, even through the lens, is transparent. It's phosphor conversion. It's the same. It's the semiconductor producing different light. If it's, I think you're saying, producing different light, it's completely clear. Exactly. I mean, it's pretty easy to see the phosphor. What's great about remote phosphor, which has sort of fallen out of favor now that we've gone down this RGB road, is that it separates your blue emitter from the actual phosphor panel. The downside is that you have to keep taking out and replacing the panel to get a different color temperature. The plus side, especially with older LED technology, is lifespan, because you're separating that blue emitter, and LEDs do produce a lot of heat, contrary to what a lot of people believe. Is if you put the phosphor on the LED emitter directly, then over time it's going to degrade much more quickly than with remote phosphor, where you have the LEDs and the panels separated from each other with space. So the advantage to remote phosphor, especially for like permanent installations where they're burning those lights for 8, 12, 18 hours a day, sometimes 24 hours a day. Think about a CNN or a Fox News or a CNBC or Sky News or whatever it's going to be. Those are burning their lights day in, day out. Huge cost advantages to LED technology, but remote phosphor, 3 years down the line, is going to hold that color much better than something that's directly on the LEDs themselves. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's see. In other lighting news, Arri announced that they are buying Claypaky. Yes. And then, yes, Curtis just did a review. I saw that on the 200. I haven't watched it yet. What will happen to the other Amarin tubes? Weren't they somewhat recently released as well? Yeah. They'll either go bye-bye when stock is done, or they'll sell them for a lot less money now that they are updating. It's moving so fast, and there's not really a lot of lights out there that are horrible anymore. It's having green magenta shift that I think is big on the light. Really allows you to match much better lighting, especially from different manufacturers. You dial 3 lights into 3200 Kelvin, take a reading, and you see that one is a little more green, one's a little more magenta. It's not going to match them perfectly, but having that in there is great. Um, yeah, but there you go. All right. What else we got? Any more comments on this lighting nonsense? I'm ready. We could talk about other stuff too. Not really much in the camera department news right now, as far as I know. If anybody does know, let me know. But the real question is, in camera land, will there be any new cameras that we're going to see in the near future? Um, We've talked about this in the past. Maybe we'll bring this up at Cameron Flask, which will be, just so you all know, housekeeping, Wednesday, March 15th, because of conflicts in schedule. There you go. Yep. Uh, DJ, I'd like to know what your comment is. If you're in a studio situation, you just can't beat it. Hono Coffee, they're practically giving it away, as far as I'm concerned. Giving away what? I'd like to know. DJ, new Blackmagic Studio cams. Yes, they've done some upgrades on those, and that was a pretty interesting event. I did watch that. No word from Caleb. I'll check in with him later. Um, they're basically just upgrading everything across the boards, and their new switching panel, which is sort of like a much less expensive version of what they had before, and much more full featured, obviously, than ATEM mini line, is pretty interesting. I have to say, when I watched Grant do the thing, I nailed the prices. I think they're very fair for what they're giving you. I do feel like they are designed for studio applications, but really, really good. Um, yeah, so check that out. Just go to blackmagicdesign.com. You can see some of the new things that they have and that have come out. And with that announcement, with Aperture Amarin announcements all happening now in sort of early March, I'm sure at Cine Gear New York, there'll be some focus on some of those new products. And then the question is a month and a half from now, what are we going to see that's new from different manufacturers at NAB? And then, of course, following that is Cine Gear LA, which is in early June, back at the Paramount lot, which is the best place for it to be. Let's see. Um, Good. Oh, giving away those Amarin 200Xs, that price, considering how much punch and performance. Yeah, I mean, the other ones are those what are they, 60Cs that I have, those panels. The mount is garbage, but they're heavy duty, and those panels for the money are pretty phenomenal if you're looking for something that's more in that one by one traditional, you know, realm. Um, David says, I finally got to use the Smoke Genie on a music video project a couple of weeks back, and it was a champ. We simulated an overhead engine and helped make a demon looked ominous. Very nice. Yeah, that little Smoke Genie is great. I'm gonna have it in my workshops at NAB, and I think for tabletop stuff, it's great, but not just for tabletop. And that's a company I'm excited to see where they go in the future. I did talk to one of the owners when I got the product, and I shot some videos about it, which are on the channel. And there's definitely more stuff coming from Smoke Genie in the future. In fact, that's a great reminder for me, David, to check in with them to see what they have coming up, because I'd love to see where they go with their sort of handheld hazer smoke fog machine stuff that they're doing. A really interesting company. Um, because they come from a theatrical and magic background, and so a lot of this came from, as do a lot of products, from solving problems that they were having for visual practical effects and things like that. So there you go. Bill, I agree. Gear is getting better and less expensive. That's great for all of us. And we're still in a place where we've got a lot of healthy competition. So I like it. Feel free to throw some questions up. I won't be able to see them when I go over to the setup over here. Let's see what I have. I have two remotes here. I don't need to. I can switch the channels, but there's the key light. And then I have this set up so that if we need to see this setup a little bit better, then we can. And I'll just take you through briefly where I'm going with all of this. The overall goal, just so that everybody knows, is for this setup that I have behind me over here and some other things I'm doing in the studio to be the basis of more lighting lessons and more things. So the first lesson I put up on my Teachable site is on split side key lighting. Um, I didn't have this background at the time, so I wish I did, because the one I was using, I just kind of threw up. But all of the education in there is very valid, and I think for $10, it's worth it if you want to check it out. If you're comfortable with split side key lighting and you've got it, then don't get it. But if you want to kind of go over that, and there's some little tips and stuff in there, check it out. And the goal is to start doing more stuff that's tabletop based, more with setups like this, and also, when I can, actually having real live human beings besides myself in here. So let's take a quick peek at this setup over here and what we've got. And as I said before, this is sort of an evolution in terms of what I'm doing. The idea overall, actually, wrong one. Let me just turn this off. I'm just trying to figure out how I want to do this. I kind of like that a little bit better. I'll switch over to another camera and wait, which one is there we go. Good. Yeah, you should check out Cine Gear. Oh no. So going over here, you should be able to hear me fine. And like I said before, what I'm doing is I'm using essentially sidecar or whatever you call it, so I can switch cameras. So I can go between this camera and that one, which is sort of the close up of the table, and then this wider one. And there's my hero camera with good old Bruce hanging out. What I can't do right now is switch from here in terms of my background. So I do have to come over to this computer at the moment, and then I can go ahead and switch out those backgrounds. So what I have to do is essentially, I have 1, 2, 3. I have, including the iPad, I have 5 monitors that I'm using now. But as long as I have the TV selected, then what I can do is pretty easily I can go in here, and I just have a bank of backgrounds right now that I can cycle through. And the idea is just to put good old Bruce into different environments so that we can talk about different lighting scenarios and stuff up like that. Haven't set up the unbleached muslin frames yet, but what I will show you is sort of the beginning to that. Again, this is just ambient light. So that's the overhead light that I'm using right now, which is just a mix panel. So obviously, if you're thinking about the lighting of this scene, it doesn't really match up very well unless there was a street lamp or something right next to Bruce over there. And, I'd have to go in and change the color temperature. So if I was going to do something like this, I would. But that's the basic deal there. I'm gonna answer Wouter's question. Do you ever have, shame on you for not putting out the C47 there. Do you ever have refresh rate issues with the monitor in the background? I do, absolutely. Cameras right now set to 2398. My shutter angle is set to 216 degrees. If I had it at 180, we'd be seeing refresh rate issues. We'd be seeing scan lines. And a lot of that just has to do with the frame rate. If I set my shutter to a 60th, then, you'd eliminate it. So you kind of have to play a little bit with monitors. It's a little tricky. And yeah, shame on you. But that's basically the deal. In fact, just so you can see that live, I'll go over to the camera and I'll switch it over to a different shutter so you can see that. And here's a 180-degree shutter, and you should start to see some scan lines happening. Yep, they're there. It'll probably be more apparent if I get a brighter background of some sort. Let me see if I can get something. Should start to see them moving behind the image. Yeah, you can sort of see it right there. So that's at 180-degree shutter. And if I switch over here and then I go over to something else, this is a 172.8. This is a 216. 216 seems to be holding pretty well. And I'm shooting an ISO 800 at an f2.8. I'm on this is the R5C on a 28-70 right now. And there's a lot of light going on in this space. So if I kill all of that light, then we can start to talk about that. What's the ouch? Yeah. Oh, that's, I'm not even going to go there with these comments. Let's go ahead and strike some lights here. Boom. Bye-bye. Bruce is in silhouette, being backlit by this wonderful monitor here. And, we'll find one of these backgrounds. Here we go. Yeah, the only problem with the Smoke Genie is, it's a small unit. So if there's a lot of wind, a lot of air movement, then it's a little trickier there. All right, so let's go to the wider shot here. I'll probably put the overhead light on just so you can see the space a little bit better. And then I can switch cameras a little bit more easily. But I think you can see everything here pretty well. I've got a stand. It's just a little mini tripod with a ball mount here. Actually, if I switch over to camera number 2, maybe you can see it even better. Is that better? Yeah, so you've got this little basically a mini tripod. It has a ball mount with a baby pin on it. And the reason I have that is the idea is to take one of these little canvases, which is just a little modifier. This would be actually a pretty big modifier and scale wise. And what I can do is I can just put that directly onto this setup here. And this is my, it's a mini grip head from Matthews. I've got a mini Mathellini clamp here. And then I've just got a white canvas frame. And what DJ was referring to before is that I'm going to cut out, I have an identical set of these frames, and I'm going to cut out the white canvas. And then I have over here some unbleached muslin, which is going to go onto here. So I'll have one set that's just white. I'll have one set that's unbleached muslin. And depending on the light source, I should be able to push light through here, but this is pretty heavy muslin. So I'll definitely be able to bounce off of it, but I might need to get some lighter weight stuff and skin them with that as opposed to this. But it's a nice, it's a nice quality muslin, and it's not a lot of money. So that's kind of the modifier thing. And then I have other sizes. So I'm out of frame. I know you're just hearing my voice here. But I have different size canvases. So I have smaller and I have larger ones here. And these things are pretty inexpensive. So depending on what I'm trying to simulate in terms of a modifier, I'll have that. And then I have these little, essentially V-flat cards here that are silver on one side. They are white on the inside on both, and then they're black on the other. So they can act as neg fill, they can act as a bounce that's cooler, or they can just be white. And if you look over here, in this area, I have one of them set up. So if I strike this little Ulanzi light over here, and we take a look at that, and I'll just strike that overhead, and then we need to switch over to good old Bruce, and you can start to see that now we don't really have a lot of ambient light inside of here, and all we're really doing at the moment is taking a look at that one light that is bouncing off of that V-flat card, and then whatever light is being produced by the screen itself. So hopefully that makes sense overall. And then if I go to a slightly wider shot here with this light on, and we'll go over to, I think it's camera number 3, you'll see that I have a second one of these bicolor Ulanzi lights over here. And if you were here last week, you saw that setup. And essentially, that's going to act as a little kicker light. So if I go down here, hold on, kids. There we go. I think I got it. Wrong one. Maybe it's this one. Come on, kid. I'm trying to do it by memory. So what I'll do is I'll actually turn it on over here. There we go. All right, that's set to 5600 Kelvin. Maybe I'll warm it up just a scotch, and then go over here, and then I can reduce the intensity. So is it this one? Getting used to this. I'll have this memorized in a little while. But let's kill the overhead. And you can see here, if I switch back over to the hero camera, boom, that we've got good old Bruce. And then I'll reduce that little kicker light, and we can bring that down just a little bit. So we're just getting a little bit of edge. And then if I wanted to, I could grab a little bit of that light that's over there. Can't get a lot of it because there's not a lot coming off of there. But I'm just walking a card in a little bit. But I think there's probably a better way to do that. I might get another one of these little Ulanzi lights, because one of the things that I do like to do, and I'll just turn the overhead on just to talk about it, is I'm a big fan of a fill just being a modifier. Just trying to remember which one to go to here. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of of a of something like this being a modifier, but when you're not getting a lot of return from a light like this, then sometimes it's just not enough to fill in and grab that light. Now, there's ways that I can handle that pretty easily. One way is to turn the intensity of this key light up a little, but then I'm gonna have to start to make some changes in camera to some other things. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. I'm just gonna go ahead and turn the intensity of this up and see where we wind up overall. It's gonna be considerably brighter. And then I'm also gonna match the color temperature of my other light to that one, which I actually have right now set to about 4,700 Kelvin, even though the camera is set to 5,600 Kelvin in terms of color temperature. So if I now turn off my overhead, I should be getting some more return, but it'll probably feel a little overexposed. So let's just see where we are with that. Take a look at Bruce. It's a little bit better. Feel free to put some comments in there. We're seeing some reflections showing up, which I'm going to have to flag a little bit on the screen, which again, it's a little bit of the trick when you're dealing with a television because it does have some reflection. But here I'm going to walk that modifier out and bring it back in, and you can kind of see the difference. And that's just giving us a little bit of return. So if I go back to a wider shot here, so you can take a look at that, you'll see that what I'm doing is I'm taking that and I'm just putting that in there and grabbing some of the light that is from over where the key is, that bounced key light over there. So I'm just taking this modifier right here and I'm just walking that in. So you'll see that when I do it, that we get a little bit of lift. Back to Bruce, turn off the overhead, and this is with it out, and then this is with it in, and then out, and then in. So I'm really trying to get my head around all of this stuff. For me personally, the big thing here is figuring out how to do this in a day in, day out practical type of way and really use this set as a tool for teaching lighting concepts. And, speaking to what you're talking about, David, with something like the Smoke Genie, because it's more tabletop, we can get into, recreating some lighting setups and some things. Do it on a smaller scale with something like the Smoke Genie and these little Ulanzi lights, which are pretty cool overall. I mean, they're about $30 or $40 for these little things, and they're so small overall that you take a look at this thing and it's this tiny little cube light, and for 30 to $40, the fact that I can have a bicolor COB, yeah, there's a little color fringing on the edges when you look at the projected light that's coming out of it, and they're not perfect, but they're good for the type of stuff that we're doing. And there's a lot of modifiers which I was showing everybody last week that will allow you to soften up the light. There's snoots and things that come with it. So for the money, I think great value, and especially for this type of application. They do make an RGB version, which I wouldn't get. Um, but I think for my applications, the daylight only with gels isn't as versatile as being able to just dial in a particular color temperature. So, I think that they have a place. I don't know if I would be using them to light a real world project necessarily, but what they are doing with these 1/6 scale um, models, Bruce and whatever else, is sort of simulate a regular fixture, but at a smaller scale, and then use these things like these canvases and these V flats and things like that to be modifiers. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to build out little soft boxes and umbrellas. But again, the little modifiers that come with it, and then combining it with little MT Pro tubes and dash lights and, things like that. But these little modifiers are just so convenient. And because it's a magnetic system, you can have these little snoots and you can have barn doors and all kinds of things. And I think that, again, we're talking $30 to $40, which is, kind of crazy. Thank you, DJ and Wilder. Yeah, I think that's the plan. So I'm still honestly trying to get my head around it, because for me, a lot of doing this type of stuff is flow. It doesn't, I want to have the flexibility that I have it set up in a way where I can change things and switch things up and demonstrate practical scenarios on the fly, like you're saying, DJ. But at the same time, I want to have it set up in a way that if I have an idea that I want to take people through a lesson in lighting, I can do that, and I have all of the pieces together. And, having this flexibility to be able to switch over and just change the environment quickly. And I can easily get I can get other models, other characters like this. There's a ton of them. Um, just gives me a lot of flexibility between being able to change these environments. And obviously, we can go wider in terms of focal length. We can go tighter. So, I mean, right now I'm at a closer to a 70 millimeter. So you can see here that we can get wider environments. And if I start to 86 some of these other things, and we start to change how we're sort of lighting everything, you can start to see that we can have quote unquote bigger setups here. Let's see how far we can go, and then forget about the lighting component of it right now. But you can see I'm sort of on an angle at the moment. But now we're at a 28 millimeter. And if I, 86 the stand there, we can get into some more interesting setups. And that gives us, more flexibility in terms of what I can do and show. And I could have more than one character in here as well. So I like the idea that this gives me more flexibility than I would have if I was just doing a standard tabletop or something like that. And, you can start to take a look at your lighting and think about how that would be in the real world, and then start to motivate your lighting based on what your backgrounds are and what you're doing. So it's not quite um, virtual production, obviously, and we're not going to get parallax and stuff like that, but it is giving you definitely some basic flexibility that you wouldn't get in normal situations. So, then bringing in the light from over here, which is probably in the frame right now, but I can just quickly and easily have another stand over here that I can set up, and just being able to have this flexibility, I think is pretty great. And I'm looking forward to seeing where this all goes in terms of creating content overall. Um, it's just getting used to sort of that overall look and feel of everything. Do I have any indoor scenarios for backgrounds put together yet? I do not. But I will. And that's only because I just grabbed some stuff online as backgrounds. So absolutely the idea would be, okay, what if we're simulating um, a sit down interview or a stand up to camera? And kind of getting into those scenarios and thinking about those as well. And it doesn't mean that everything has to be shallow depth of field. And, I can stop the camera down and we can see more of what's on that screen in focus, so on and so forth. Um, yeah, good. Um, yep. Other questions, other things that we want to go over. I think we got about 10 minutes or so. Happy to go over anything with anybody. No answers here. Okay. What do we got? What's next? Love the wandering DP He's got great information, and it's great to see his evolution as a cinematographer and breakdowns and sort of his approach, an American in Australia, and does some really, really great work, and also has great guests on and great breakdowns and all of that stuff. What do we got? It keeps moving forward with everybody here. Next week, we might do something a little bit different, but I do, at least in a couple of weeks from now, want to get into this setup a little bit more and maybe DJ do something where we do have an interior. Maybe we get somebody in sort of a more sit down interview style and deal with that. Um, it's the downside to this is we have a two-dimensional background, which has the appearancy of depth, especially if you get the right background. Um, Maybe the solution to that will be choosing the right background and essentially creating some flats or some walls around it. I don't know. Um, and then Wilder's talking about maybe canceling the 60D order to pre-order an S model. Hmm, I don't know. I haven't really looked into it as much as maybe I should. If I mean, the 60D is just daylight only, right? Are you thinking about only going daylight, or you're gonna get bicolor? I mean, I am a big proponent of bicolor lights. I know that you're not necessarily always gonna get exactly the same amount of punch in terms of output out of that daylight fixture, but if you get a fixture, for instance, if you were thinking about getting a 60, I might consider getting a 200, but getting it as a bicolor as opposed to a 60 daylight. Um, you're compensating to a certain degree based on that pure output of the light, but then having that flexibility of being able to change color temperature. And I'm talking out of my ass a little bit here because I'm not sure if the S model is daylight only as well. It might be that it's the SX, because generally the naming convention from Aperture is to put an X there if it's bicolor. But Wilder, I would say if I was plunking money down, for me, it would be bicolor all day long, unless I needed some sort of RGB based fixture to have some flexibility. And a good point on that is, hold on one second. If I'm taking a look at this fixture right here, which is the Amarin P60C, they also make a bicolor version of this light. And if I were gonna, and I think this sort of breaks my rule a little bit, but if I were gonna choose between the two, in this case, for the money, I would get the P60C. It's got great output just for regular sort of correlated color temperature. So you're warm to cool light, but having that added benefit of having RGB in it, for the price point difference between the two, I'd go with the P60C. Generally with COBs, I would go with bicolor units. Exceptions to that, for instance, I have the Nan light, the little Forza 60C, and that is a color unit. And what I really like about that is I have a 36-degree projector on it, and I can put gobos or go-betweens in there. Hold on, I'll just show it to you. I'm here, kids. So this is the Forza 60C, and what I like about this is generally if I'm projecting a gobo pattern anyway, um, it's pretty concentrated and you don't need tremendous output. And most of the time you're using gobos in interior spaces anyway. So if you want to go noir and you want to do your Venetian blinds or, whatever it's going to be, then it'll be, you know, usually enough output. And I like the fact that I have the flexibility to go, again, correlated color temperature, warm to cool light, but I can also go ahead and, uh, project a nice color using this. So I like this. It can be battery operated. the size of it compared to taking like a 300 and putting a projection unit on it is much, much smaller. It's just a lot easier to deal with this, and I think that um, projected light is great if you're using, if you're not using a gobo and you want a slash of light somewhere, then that may be where you need to go with a bigger fixture, or you're lighting a much bigger space. But I would say that that makes sense overall. So those are a couple of exceptions for me in terms of going color versus bicolor. But I would say overall that, hold on, I'm just going to save these lights here. There's no point burning them if we're not using them. I would say overall that for me, the the idea would be to go bicolor for your bigger fixtures. Yeah, Clint would be great too. I'm loving Bruce. I have Jason as well, is around here somewhere, and I do have a sort of generic, not a particular actor, female character. So combinations of those may be what I do. All right, let's see. Wilder says it's going to be my first key light proper, and all of it is on my hobby budget. But going up a model to secure the investment is always good. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be looking at a 60-watt as my key light. You're losing a lot of flexibility. Now, that said, a lot of 1x1 panels sort of sat in that 55 to 100 watt range, but I think you can do better now in terms of flexibility. Shoji Productions, I haven't really looked at that 200XS yet. The old ones I liked in terms of what I saw. The flexibility of having, I believe it has plus minus green, and better color spectrum is great. Price point is awesome. So I don't think there's a lot that I can say that's bad about it, at least on paper and from what I've seen, but I haven't watched or seen a lot on it just because my last 2 days have been a little crazy. I put my eyes on the tubes a little bit more than on the COBs. But yeah, let's just quickly see, and I can give you a little bit more take on it. We got a few more minutes. Let's see what the dudes over at the News Shooter say, not in terms of their feelings on it, but just sort of information. Let's see. We've got the S series. We've got dual blue LED chipset upgrades. I still don't know what the heck that means, but better color, I'm sure. 200XS, which is their highest end in the Amarin. Again, it looks like Amarin's really doing the sort of smaller fixtures. It's a bicolor. It's $349. Great price point. Available in theory right now. And Wilder, I mean, look, if you don't want to spend a lot of money, you can always make a hard light source soft. You can't make a soft source hard. So a 200XS seems to me like a baseline right now for a light that would be in your kit that you can use as a key. It's still not going to have enough punch in certain situations, but I would say that in relatively, not totally, but relatively controlled environments, that line's going to, that light is going to do well. Vast, I've looked at that zoom very briefly. I haven't seen a lot on it. What is it about the interface that you like specifically? I'm interested to hear about that. And yeah, so if anything, if at the end of this episode, Wilder's rethinking the light choice and doesn't get that 60D, I think that would be wise. I think going up a model would make a lot of sense. I mean, you really are making a big jump once you start to get into the 300 plus watt fixtures. You'll get a lot of life out of that 200. And I'm still, except for the mount itself, really pretty impressed with the P60C from Amarin as well. Um, I'm loving that Zoom and other companies are coming out with 32-bit float options. I think that what's really interesting is that new uh, Rode microphone, which is the 5th generation NT1, which has 32-bit float as part of the mic, which is just ridiculous. So you can use their software and you're getting essentially their processing, but a lot of that's built into the microphone itself, and the price points they're hitting in the audio space are pretty remarkable. This doesn't mean I still don't drool over a Shep's mic, and I'd love to have one day. Use them quite a few times, but don't own one. But I do think that that's a pretty interesting space. What I really want now is I want 32-bit float. We got that Zaxcom problem though, but I want 32-bit float to just sort of be something that creeps in as a standard in the wireless space more. Yeah, I think that the Rode mic is handling AD conversion internally. That's a big upgrade on that. So there you go. Okay. I think you're gonna. How much is the 60D, Wouter? Let me know. But I don't know if you can cancel that 60D. I would do that because my guess is that once you get the 200XS, that you're gonna find that you're gonna want a second unit. But if you're locked into daylight, I don't know if that's a great way to go. You might want to get a 60XS would be my guess, because it's a much better match. You get that flexibility of color temperature, and everything else. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, sir. You're going to get the 60D, you're going to get the 200XS, and then you're going to get frustrated because you can't change the color temperature of the 60D. But you're going to keep both of them because you're going to realize that you're going to want that for a rim light or for a backlight or something else. And you're going to want the 60D, what's it called? 60XS. So, yeah, it's a big, euro. Wow. Yeah, because the 200XS is 349 US. The 60XS is 199 US dollars. What's the can you tell me what the 60XS is in euros? I'd be interested in that. I feel like we're doing tech support consulting, but that's part of what the channel's all about. So let me know what that price is, because interestingly, the 100 is only $50 more than the 60. I mean, it's a hole you're getting into. Oh, interesting. So the 60XS is almost the same price in euros as it is in US dollars, but the 200 is almost it's like 80. Let me see. It's 349 US and it's 429 euro. So there's a big gap in terms of price, a big change in price there. Oh, that's the DS. Okay. That makes a little more sense in terms of the spread in price. Let me know where you're winding up. And I know that there's a budget here, but I still think that you should go 200XS and maybe wait a little while and then either get a 60XS or a 100XS. Yep. Well, the MC Pro's coming. They've shown it vast. It just don't know why there's a hold up on that unit. So there you go. And how much is your original 60D? Did you already post that? Your original 60D is 180, right? Is that correct? So for sure, I would spend an extra 70 on the bicolor unit. The flexibility you get is just totally different. And I believe they're putting plus minus green on the S versions of these as well. If I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong. Somebody tell me otherwise. I don't know. Maybe there is no plus minus green on them and I'm just imagining that. Um, somebody please tell me. But I feel like that's true, but I may be wrong. Somebody tell me. Wilder, I'm not trying to drive this too hard here, but I'm glad. I think in the end you'll be much happier. You'll spend a little bit more money and you will get more. Oh no, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to put some sort of projector on there that will sort of Leica-ize the 200XS. But I'm not 100% sure. But based on the mount, I would be pretty sure. I know Nanlight's doing that for their smaller fixtures, which I just showed you on that Forza 60C. But I would just go to Aperture's website and look at their modifiers and see what they have, because they should have pretty much everything rolled out right now. All right. Yeah. That's correct, DJ. It's a Bowens mount. The projectors, though, it's the optics that you have to match up. You can't just take a Bowens mount projector and just say, "Oh, I'll just move this projection attachment to any light fixture," because a lot of it has to do with that beam angle and the optics inside of the projector. So there does have to be some matchup between the two. You're right. A lot of the time, the modifier is actually heavier than the fixture itself, but most of those projection attachments have their own baby pin female attachment. So you would actually have very similar to using a collar on a larger lens for a camera system. You would basically put your plate on the collar and mount the lens to it and have the camera hanging off of the back. So that's the same with these projection units. In fact, that's exactly what we have right here. So you'll see here, this is the attachment for the projection unit, and then here's the light itself. The light would normally go onto the stand here, but because the projector is larger, that's what's actually mounted to the light stand itself. Here we are, kids. Do you hear the airplane, by the way? Just let me know. It's really loud in here. Let me know if you hear the airplane. I'll tell you why in a second. It is definitely a benefit of the 200XS that you have a larger fixture, which is better for larger modifiers for sure. You can't hear the airplane. That's another one. That's another check mark for the noise assist feature of the Mix Pre 2 series from Sound Devices, because inside of here, it was buzzing like crazy. It's amazing how well, that's not my mic. It's the Mix Pre 6.2 with the noise assist. How good that freaking thing is. Man, you guys are on fire now. You didn't hear it on headphones. Beautiful. When do you think a power cable needs to be replaced? I got some mole lights whose cable is pretty stiff. Do I need to replace? Ooh, I don't know if a stiff cable. I mean, that probably means that it was in lots of different temperatures and things like that. If it's brittle, then you might want to replace the cable. I don't know. Wilder, a year ago, I was about to buy 3 100Ds and slapped myself, and I bought 2 200Ds instead of one light. But I got so much more out of those 2 fixtures. Yep, that makes sense. Great. All right. Listen, kids, I'm out of here. I got work to do. I got a family to feed. And I mean that in 2 different ways, meaning I got to make money and feed the family, pay for colleges and schools and rents and all that stuff. But I also have to go cook dinner. Brittle. Oh no. Yeah, I would do that. If you're comfortable doing it yourself, great. Otherwise, I would just take it to an electrician and have them rewire it. If you have more than one fixture, it probably won't cost a lot of money. Maybe you can source the actual cables themselves. If you have an electrician who's a friend, even better. There you go. Yeah, that's it. next time, I don't know what we'll do, but I'll figure it out either minutes before or days before the episode. But I will be back next Wednesday. As far as I know, I don't think there's a conflict in the afternoon production wise. If there is, it'll be 2 weeks from now. But for sure, 2 weeks from now, Cameron Flask. And right now, I'm planning to be here next Wednesday, 3 p.m. Pacific. And there you go. Everybody, as always, I'm going to go and do stuff. Wilder, go get your light fixtures. Everybody else, behave yourselves. Take care. Bye.